And the next thing we're going to do is set up the tail. So what we're going to need is the little tail rotor assembly here, which is put together. Again, go through all this, take it apart, and put it back together for any parts metal on metal, and ensure that they're Loctited down. Now we're also going to need, at this time, the tail boom. There's two halves to the tail boom. This half here, you can see it in the light there, is just a hole. The other side has a slot. That's right there. And get some light on it. You can see that whole slot going through. The slot is for the front for the fuselage, and the hole is for the back. What we're going to do is just loosen this part off here. So once we've got it pushed in and lined up, you may have to remove this black piece to see where you can, where the hole lines up, or you can do it as by feel as I did, and then we can just tighten these back down. You will have to Loctite them later on. But I'm going to leave them with the Loctite off because I haven't put the horizontal stabilizer on now. So it's essentially it's a temporary thing. So now we can just put this aside and work on the torque tube. Okay, so here's the torque tube. This drives the tail rotor. And what we need to do is, you can see there's a rubber bushing on a bearing that sits here. What we have to do is tack this down near the middle. I'm saying near the middle because not at the middle, otherwise we get resonation. The two sides are identical. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure this. So the length is, it looks like just about 37 centimeters. So what I'm going to do is take the halfway point, which is, okay, so that's going to be 18 and a half. So I mark 18.5, and I'm going to go 10 millimeters one way. So that's where my mark is, where I'm going to actually put the thing. So as you can see, you can't see the black on the black here, but I can. It doesn't really matter. It's a temporary thing, and that's where we're going to put our bearing here. How we're going to do that is we're going to use some CA. Use some thin CA if you've got it, and tack it on there. You can also use Loctite, which is what I used when I was putting my 500 helicopter together. And just put the tiniest amount of CA on there. You don't want to put extra because you don't want it to get into the bearing part. So if you've got any extra, just kind of wipe it off. And then just take the bearing part and slide it down over where your mark was, and leave it there. And it should dry and be off-center. So the next thing we have to do is take the torque tube and mount it in the tail. As we mentioned before, there's two sides to this, a long side and a short side. One should be 50 millimeter longer or shorter than the other. It doesn't really matter which side goes with. The manual recommends that you put some oil on this so that it slides in, and that's fine. But I'm also going to put a bit of oil down the hatch here so that it keeps sliding when it goes in. It doesn't matter if I got oil in there because it just will help keep things smooth. So what I'll do is line it up. Okay, after a bit of work, I got it down there, and we can turn the tail rotor. And we want to make sure that we're not all the way in. We can put it in, push in, and make sure that we've got a little bit of it's pushed all the way back. And then what we want to do is back it off because we don't want to have as too much tension in there. There should be a little bit of play on both the front and the back. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to put the tail boom into the fuselage. Before you do that, don't forget to put these doodads on there. We don't need to put the guidelines and mounts for the tail servo, remember, because it's in the fuselage now. But make sure you put these bad boys on there so that we can you don't have to take it apart later. Okay, so now let's mount the tail boom in. On the back of the fuselage, there's 4 screws here that you want to loosen those. They look like they're going into plastic, but they actually is a metal piece in there, so remember to Loctite them later. What we're going to do is get the slot, which is going to be on the left-hand side of the fuselage, line it up, and slide into the fuselage. You'll see when it meets up, and push it all the way in. Once we're going to make sure that by turning the tail rotor that we get some movement of the gears inside, and it looks like we do. And now what we're going to do is push it all the way in, again, back it off just a little bit, and tighten these screws down. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to mount the head to the helicopter. What we're going to need, obviously, is the head, the helicopter, main gear, there's a bolt and a nut there, and in your little bag of goodies you should find 2 spacers. Now, on the old 450 V2, it had a collar that had some grub screws in it to hold down. It's called. This one has spacers that you use to adjust the spacing. So there's a little fit over. I'm going to start with one, and then we'll see if that is enough, and then add the other one if not. So make sure you line up the anti-rotation bracket. Push it down, and we're going to need to put the, before we push all the way down, obviously we're going to need to put the gear in. Next thing you do is make sure that the holes work. So make sure that the you can see light through these holes, and then we'll tighten it up and see how much play there is. If there's too much play, we can add the other spacer up here, and then tighten it up that way. So the next thing I'm going to do is install the rudder servo. What I've done is I've removed the holder here, and I'm just going to install the servos in it. It comes with some self-tapping screws to put the servo in. You might want to sort of prepare the plastic for going in. They seem to be a bit fat for that. Also, as you can see, I'm looking at the top right now, it's kind of offset. It's offset to the left-hand side of the fuselage. That's so when the ball link of the servo arm is off to the side, as you can see right there, it's going to be more to the center of the tail boom. So just keep that in mind. Make sure that you set up your servo so that the ball link is on the right-hand side of the fuselage when you're dropping it in. So that's what I'm going to do is drop it in and screw it in with the included screws. Okay, so that's what the servo looks like all installed, and now we're just going to and just put it back in the helicopter, slide it in, and screw it back into place, and that should be it for the tail servo. Okay, let's just tidy up here. This is the completed helicopter. One at a time. The last thing I've done here is put the rudder push rod here. With this model, you can't slide the servo back and forth, so you have to adjust the ball links to get the blade pitch at 0, or whatever your gyro is supposed to have it set up as. So that's what I've done here, and once that's done, you can tack down the little adjustments. You can see I've put a little bit of zap strap underneath there. There's a spot on the guides to do that, and then they'll be firm in place. You can also put a bit of CA to firm them down. We also have to adjust the servo ball links right here. There's a specific height that is given measurements in the manual for those. Those worked out really well, and what that does is it gives me the washout arms here are perfectly flat when I use those ball links. And if they're not, you can adjust all the ball links and make sure that you've got a level swash plate when all of the servo arms are level. You can get a swash plate leveler for that. I don't have one, but probably should, and it just helps out. Once that's done, you want to make sure that these arms are level as well, and you can do that by adjusting the length of these arms here. Now, we've already set them up with a specific length. We may have to adjust them. I found that they were a bit long, so I had to shorten them up a little bit. Okay, what else? We've got to put the blades on, and that's pretty straightforward. The tail rotor blades. And then finally mount the electronics. A good place to mount the speed controller is underneath the battery tray here. Mine wouldn't fit, so I just put it on the outside. I mounted my receiver on the outside, just because it's a little bit better access, and it's a narrow fuselage, so that's where I put that. Make sure everything's clean and tight. This is mounted with proper tape, the gyro here. And that's pretty much it. Just make sure that, once again, everything that needs to be Loctited is Loctited. And everything's firmed up. So that's pretty much it. This little baby here is the Flasher 450 Pro, which is available at SN Hobbies at snhobbies.com. Thanks for watching.